You're listening to AnaerdaTV on CJSF 90.1 FM Burnaby. Welcome to the hour of spoilers, recommendations, and my perspective on various TV shows and web series. And who am I? Well, I am your host, Adriana Bulur. This week's episode is about Kim's Convenience. But before I talk about Kim's Convenience, I kind of want to talk about last week's episode. So last week's episode was about Voltron Legendary Defender. And I was very nervous when I was doing the show because it was my first episode. And I asked you guys to give me feedbacks and your recommendations and everything. And you guys definitely did not disappoint. I had so many people tell me that I did a good job and I had no reason for being as nervous as I was, or that I sounded shaky at first, but later on I was okay. And a lot of you complimented my voice, which is really great because, I mean, as a radio host, that means a lot. Thank you so much for all the love and support you showed me, and I love you guys. I have known you for a week, but I already love you guys so much. So yeah, continue to give me feedbacks and your recommendations. All my social media handle is Adriana Bulur, so we'll get on with this episode. So Kim's Convenience is actually a comedic Canadian sitcom about Koreans in Toronto. The main focus is on this Korean-Canadian family called the Kim's family. They own a convenience store called the Kim's Convenience, hence the name of the show. So in the family, we have Appa, which is Korean for father or dad, who is played by Paul Sung-hoon Lee. And then we have Uma, which is Korean for mother, played by Jin Yoon. Then we have the younger daughter named Janet, who is played by Andrea Bang, and a son named Jung. Yeah, that I may have made a play on words. Am I cheesy for that? Maybe a little bit. So Jung is played by Simu Liu. So we have two other characters who I believe are quite important to the plot from time to time, so I'm gonna mention them. One is Kimchi, who is Jung's friend and co-worker, who is played by Andrew Pang, and then we have Shannon, who happens to be Jung and Kimchi's manager. This lovely character is played by Nicole Power. I absolutely love these characters. Also, there are other characters in the show that have a recurring role. I'm not going to mention all of them because I kind of want to find out who you like after you watch the show, and do let me know because I enjoy reading, comments and such. So this show is actually an original, its original network is CBC, but don't worry, non-Canadian listeners of mine, because since July 2018, Kim's Convenience actually debuted internationally on Netflix. So you can go up to Netflix and watch the show and enjoy it. I really love it. All of the shows and web series I kind of will talk about in, this whole AnaerdaTV podcast, I really love them. Like I said, it's just me fangirling about the whole shows. I just love. All right, so Kim's Convenience, it has a background that I very much love. When I was researching, I found out a few things that I initially did not know when I just watched Kim's Convenience. And it really interested me more to watch the, upcoming seasons and everything. Kim's Convenience was co-created by Vance Joy when he was in Soul Pepper Academy. And then that's where it all started. Kim's Convenience was initially a play in the Fringe Festival. And actually, Paul Sung-hoon Lee, who plays Appa in the TV show, also played Appa in the play. And the mother, Uma, who's played by Jin Yoon, also came back on the television as their own role. And then we actually, Vance Joy, who's the co-creator of the show, played Jung, their son. So it was very interesting. You can actually know more about the creation and transition of Kim's Convenience from a play to the hit comedy TV series that it is right now. There's a video on YouTube called Kim's Convenience from Stage to Screen. It's by CBC Comedy. I'll try to link it. Yeah, if you guys check it out, you can see more in depth about how it was created, how the actors also had their input on how to run the show and everything. It's very interesting, actually. I really liked it. So, while doing some more research for the podcast on Kim's Convenience, I came across a video where Simu Liu, who's the actor who plays Jung, he kind of explains the premise of the whole show by saying that it's a story of a typical dysfunctional family, but with a Canadian twist. And I absolutely love it because it's basically how the plot could be explained. It's just perfect. So I'm going to leave it at that. The show has a very diverse cast. Like, the main characters are obviously from Asian descent. All right. So, the show so far actually has 2 seasons, and the third one is on its way. It will air on January 8th, 2019. I am so excited for it. If you actually go to their Twitter account, you can see them kind of like hyping it up because it should be hyped up. And oh, by the way, the cast that played Kim's family, they actually made like different playlists on Spotify. You should check that out too. I really like the playlists. Even though the 3rd season is coming out on January 8th, 2019, we also got a confirmation that there is going to be a 4th season. So I'm genuinely really, really excited. I know I've said that like a couple of times, but yeah, I can never say that enough. So this is kind of like the background premise of what Kim's Convenience is kind of and how it came to be. But now, before I move on farther about the characters themselves, I'm going to play a song called Happy Pills by Weathers. I hope you guys enjoy it. Hello and welcome back. You're listening to AnaerdaTV on CJSF 90.1 FM Burnaby. Okay, I realize that I'm still a little bit nervous. I'm going to fix this, okay? I'm going to be pretending that I'm talking to somebody else just to make myself feel better about talking to myself. I guess it will work. Let's try it out, okay? Now, I'll look at the wall and pretend that I'm talking about a normal daily life to just kind of get into it. I got Starbucks today because I needed a drink. And Starbucks actually got like their Christmas already going on, at least in Canada. So because we already had our Thanksgiving like weeks back. I know Americans, you guys still have your Thanksgiving coming up. So, but yeah, we're already starting to celebrate for Christmas and preparing. So that's very cool. I really like the designs. All right, I realized, yeah, I can do this. I'll pretend I'm talking to somebody else. Cool. Now let's talk about the characters, because, I mean, I am absolutely in love with the characters. First, we have Mr. Kim, which is Appa. He was actually a teacher back in Korea before he migrated to Canada with his wife, where they now own and operate Kim's Convenience. This whole premise is set in Toronto's Moss Park neighborhood. Initially, why I kind of got into Kim's Convenience and watching it was, 1, it was recommended to me, and 2, because the whole setting is in Canada, and I was like, yes, it's a Canadian show. I'm like so proud of it and everything. I didn't watch it on CBC. I actually watched it after it came out on Netflix. So I was very interested in watching it, and the very first episode kind of got me hooked, and I will talk about like the episodes specifically a bit later on after I'm kind of done giving you guys a preview of, you know, how the characters are and all that. So Mr. Kim, he's very practical, and he is very opinionated, he's very stubborn, and he's very blunt. At times, it kind of gets him into a bit of a clash with other characters in the show. A lot of the times, I mean, even though it's about a Korean family, I can relate to a lot of it because, I don't know, I guess we were all brought up the same somehow. I always wondered if our parents go to like a particular institution where they learn how to be parents, because they keep on using like the same ways to kind of teach us stuff, or like, you know, same sayings that all parents say. I find it interesting Do you parents have an institution that we do not know of? Let me know if you do know about such institution. Alright, next we have Amma, which is Mrs. Kim, played by Jin Yoon. She used to also be a teacher in Korea, and throughout the series we see how she is so hardworking. She's very kind, and she likes to meddle with the lives of her family. Like, she tries to, help everyone. She tries to kind of make them do things that she thinks is good for them. And most of the time it is, because, mothers are always right. Hi, Mom, I know you're listening to this. I love you. So Mrs. Kim's life kind of revolves around the store, her family, and church. She loves the church. She volunteers there a lot. A lot of the episode kind of has, a lot of premise around her volunteering and her church days. Then we have Mr. and Mrs. Kim's son, who is, Jung. I really love the actor who plays Jung. Like, he stole my heart away. When I initially saw Simu Liu, it was in a YouTube video actually by Wang Fu Productions. So that was very interesting. When I saw him again in Kim's Convenience, I was like, oh, I know this guy. And he's very funny. So yeah, he plays Mr. and Mrs. Kim's son and Janet's brother. At the very beginning, Jung worked in a handy car rental, where he was later on promoted to assistant manager. Jung's character develops a lot throughout the series, and I really liked that. I found that he kind of got a very steady development, if I would put it that way. He grew a lot as a person in his career as well, and I will talk about that when I talk about the episodes particularly. We kind of get a backstory too in some of the episodes, and we get to know that he used to be a rebellious teenager who used to engage in some crimes, and obviously that kind of got him into troubles with Appa. And you kind of find out very early on in the show that Appa and Jung don't really talk to each other. They kind of have this whole division amongst themselves and everything. So because Appa kind of like kicked him out of the family after he stole from Kim's convenience store. But yeah, later on, like I said, Jung gets a development, and it's very interesting to see. Now we talk about Janet Kim, who's the youngest daughter. She's played by Andrea Bang. Janet actually goes to OCAD University. I really like Janet because Janet's like very hardworking, and she is actually an art major, and she's very talented. If you like, in some of the episodes, you can see her work, her photographs, and everything. She's very talented, and a lot of her instructors also, see that, and they kind of give her a lot of attention at times, and it's really good. But she feels she gets frustrated a lot of the times because of her parents' traditionalism, and she feels that they don't support her as much as she would have wanted. Especially, she thinks it's because maybe she's studying something that's to do with art, and she a lot of the times goes to complain to her brother about how her parents are kind of like grasping onto her and everything, kind of like over parenting her. And she kind of blames it on Jung, saying that you're the older brother, now that they cannot parent you, they are putting all that parenting that they wanted to parent you with on me and all that stuff. So then we obviously have Kimchi. He's like the funny best friend. I love him. Like, Kimchi is there for comic relief, and he's also a very interesting character. And later on, we find some very interesting. How many times am I saying interesting? It doesn't matter. Okay, Kimchi, interesting. These are the adjectives I will use to describe Kimchi, my comic relief boy, and a very interesting character. And then we have Shannon. Shannon kind of like, initially you feel like Shannon is the one that's all over Jung, kind of. You can very much see that Shannon has a thing for Jung. You later on see that Jung kind of acknowledges that, and he translates the whole feeling back again. I don't know. I'm really interested for season 3 to see what happens with their arc, because, oh my god, let me tell you, Kim's Convenience has a streak of making their season finales very emotional, very kind of a cliffhanger. It's very nice. I love it, but oh my god, I'm like really excited for season 3. But before I talk more in depth about the seasons and its episodes, I kind of want to play another song. It's called Georgia, and it's by Vance Joy. I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you guys like that song. Again, it was Georgia by Vance Joy. Now, before I get into more about Kim's Convenience, I kind of want to talk to you guys, because I feel like it's very important as a radio host to interact with the listeners. I wish I could see all of you, but then I might actually get very nervous and just be like, and then there's just like blank silence, which happens sometimes even in the radio show, even though when I'm talking to myself. So let's get into an in-between terms. And how can we get into an in-between term? Well, if you have any recommendations or any feedbacks or anything you would like to say to me, you can actually message me on Instagram or in the YouTube comment section when I upload this later on down the week, or you can tweet at me. I barely go to Twitter, but if you guys prefer Twitter, I will be there, because I kind of want to know who my listeners are. I kind of want to get to know them better, because I honestly want to show you guys as much as love as you are showing me. So, it's a whole thing. So last week when I talked about, I know I keep on going to last week. It's because I want to improve this podcast, and I kind of want to show you guys that I did read what you guys sent me, and I want more of these, because I want to see the love, and I want to show some love. Okay, so last week I was told that when I give out information, it kind of gets concentrated, and for people that did not see the show, it gets hard to kind of keep up. So this is kind of like the breathing area here, and I know I told you guys a lot of information about Kim's Convenience, so I kind of want to let you guys breathe at this moment, so that I hope you took in the information and now you're really interested to see Kim's Convenience as much as I am about season 3. But you first should go watch season 1 and season 2. It's on Netflix. I actually got live feedback a few minutes ago from one of my friends who's listening in, and they said that I did a lot better and it was less boring. So thank you for that backhanded compliment. I definitely appreciate it. I mean, you could have said that it was better and just left it out there, but it's okay. I'll take that. I'll take it. Thank you to my friends that are listening to this. I love you guys. Alright, so let's get back to specific episodes of the series, and I hope I speak slow enough so that you guys can follow along if you haven't watched it. If you have watched it and you want to fangirl with me, go ahead. Also, let me know which episodes are like your favorites. I want to see them too and kind of like fangirl about them as well. Alright, here goes. So I'm first going to talk about some episodes that I liked from season 1. Well, I actually liked all of the episodes, but some episodes I liked way more because I just have a weird sense of humor, and those episodes kind of like aligned with them. Episode 7. This happens to be one of my most favorite episode. Is it because one of the character was from Vancouver? Perhaps it plays a little bit part of it, but no, not all of the reason. I'll tell you right. Okay, so this one was called Hapkido. So Janet takes a Hapkido class, which is a form of martial arts, but Mr. Kim, who is Janet's father, thinks he knows more than her teacher. And then Jung runs into Grace Lee, an old flame. They both discover that their meeting was not accidental, but a part of a plan by their mothers to get them back together. So this is how the episode is explained. Now, here's the thing. Like I said, Mr. Kim is very stubborn and very opinionated and everything. So he's like, yeah, I know more than your teacher. Why do you have to pay a separate instructor to teach you this when I can just teach you this at home? And Janet's like, Dad, it's because of many reasons. And I feel like it's better if I let an instructor teach me rather than you. And then obviously Mr. Kim is like, how dare you? You know, it's a thing, okay? So, yeah. And then later on, actually, Janet takes her father to Hapkido class and he annihilates the competition. Although, you know, it was on purpose, kind of. And the instructor wanted Janet to know to, you know, not kind of disrespect her dad ever again. So I felt like this episode had a very interesting way of showing that, like, all the episodes kind of have like an underlying moral, and I really love that about Kim's Convenience. Another thing about like Jung and the old flame is the old flame, who is Grace Lee in this. I mean, the character's name is Grace Lee, is from Vancouver, and I was like, yes, represent, you go, boy. And my best friend Muntaka, she was like, she visited Vancouver and came over for a few weeks before she saw the episode. And when she saw it, she was like, I know that place. And we were like talking about it. I know she's listening to this. Hello, hi, how are you doing? You're probably going to tell me that by texting me, but I'm still asking you over a podcast. Are you happy your name is out there? I hope you are. This is me showing how much I appreciate and love you, because you're my best friend since kindergarten. I love you, my boy. My girl. Yeah. Okay, moving on. So the reason why I really like this is because you can see how the mothers are kind of like playing Cupid and they're trying to get them together, but obviously they have personal reasons as to why they cannot. There's this whole premise, but the mothers, how they tried to get their kids together. My mom so far hasn't tried this. Thank you, mother. But I've seen some of my friends, my older friends, kind of get into this, and their mom was like, so I'm taking you to a party where there are going to be many aunts of yours that you may not know, but they will still squish your cheeks and say, oh my God, do you remember me? You were like 5 years old when I last saw you. Auntie, I wish I did know you, but I kind of forgot what I even ate last week. So, you know, asking me about something to remember about when I was 5 is kind of not happening. But anyways, and one of my friend like knocked me and was like, oh my God, this is like my mom. You can relate to most of the episodes here, so I love it. And then there was episode 8, which was called Service. The premise was Mr. and Mrs. Kim's relationship is tested when Mr. Kim offers the attractive new female pastor some free items from store. Janet dates Jung's friend Alex, and Jung pretends to be cool with it. Like I said, Mrs. Kim does a lot of volunteering and church work, so there's a new pastor in town. Mr. Kim is kind of like biased towards this pastor over the male pastor that was there previously. And so what happens basically is that when the new pastor kind of comes over to Kim's convenience store, like Mr. Kim's like, oh, you don't have to pay for this. You can just take it for free. And Mrs. Kim says it and goes like, excuse me, I thought you were all about the business. Why are you giving people free stuff and all that? Later on, the new pastor and Mrs. Kim kind of come to this middle ground where the pastor is like, okay, I really feel bad taking free stuff. And Mrs. Kim's like, oh, how about this? You take free stuff from him, but later on you pay to me. And obviously the pastor's like, yeah, of course. And then when Mr. Kim finds this out later on, but more importantly, I want to talk about the second part of the episode. I mean, second premise that kind of goes on simultaneously in the episode. It's okay. Janet starts dating Jung's friend Alex. Alex is like a police officer. In a previous episode, you see that Alex kind of helps them out when there's a misunderstanding and they think that Jung kind of broke into Kim's convenience store, but actually Jung was there to help Janet fix a problem. And Mr. and Mrs. Kim wasn't around at the time. That's when we first get to see Alex. So at that point, Alex and Janet kind of like gets their friendship rekindled, and one thing leads to another. They start dating. And so Jung kind of invites Alex and Janet over to kind of hang out with Kimchi and him. And obviously, like, Janet is trying to keep her distance from Alex because Janet knows how her brother is gonna act. Jung is like, no, I'm cool with it. Don't worry about it. And then later on, when they are affectionate, Jung is like, I cannot take this. And I feel like I have a sister, so I don't know how this goes, but I have seen overprotective brothers and how they are. So seeing that to me, it was funny. But to my friends, they were like, oh my God, I relate to this so much. Like, it's not even funny at this point. Then we have episode 9, which is Best Before. You know what? Scratch everything I said. This is the best episode I have ever seen. This was the most relatable episode I have ever come across. And I'm not even over exaggerating. The premise of this episode was Mr. Kim tries to prove that best before dates mean nothing when Janet objects to his selling expired ravioli. Mrs. Kim's serving up her homemade food, I'm not going to try to pronounce it, at church bazaar when a surprise visit by Jung forces her to admit that she's embarrassed by his troubled past. Now, I'm going to talk about the second premise first because it's kind of dark. So what happens is she kind of doesn't want her church friends to know about, Jung's troubled past, and because she feels like she has to hold this high ground. But obviously, like I said, Jung has had a development, so at this moment he's like absolutely amazing and all that, but still there are some people in the church community, in Mrs. Kim's church community, that is like, I want to know more. What happened to Jung? Why doesn't he come to different occasions and all that? So they're kind of like snooping around, and Mrs. Kim doesn't want that, and especially when Jung shows up, it kind of amplifies the whole situation. But later on, she's like, you know what? I'm proud of my son, so like, whatever. Now the first premise. Oh my God. Okay, my mom does not believe in a best before date, and somehow my mother's stomach is okay with it. Although in this episode you see that Mr. Kim later on realizes that his stomach particularly is not okay with best before dates. But honestly though, this is something that my mother's particularly, I'm not gonna say my parents because my dad's like, no, best before date should be, believed and everything. And if my mom hears this podcast, which I believe she is, she's probably gonna call me up and go like, okay, you did not have to tell these many people about this, but it's a thing. Okay, I apologize, Mom, for putting you out there. And anyways, so basically Mr. Kim is selling something that has an expired date already passed, and he takes them down from the shelf, but he's like, we're not gonna waste this. And so he's like, I'm gonna eat it if you guys don't eat it. And obviously Janet's like, okay, Appa, you don't have anything to prove, like, I believe you, but like, just don't eat it, just for this time, like, throw it. But Appa's like, no, I'm gonna eat it. And later on he kind of gets sick, his stomach gets upset. But my God, like, I have laughed watching this episode. Every time I'm always like yeah. Because I use headphones when I'm like watching something, and my sister just looks at me from the corner, like from her table, and she's just like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm just watching Kim's Convenience. And she's like, oh, just tell me that next time. I like, she knows if I'm watching Kim's Convenience, I'm laughing, like, it's a thing. So then we have the last episode of season 1. This touched my heartstrings and played with it and kind of ripped it apart. Let me know if you felt the same way actually about this episode. But it was so nice because you see that Mrs. Kim is kind of like trying to get, like, throughout the whole season, she's kind of trying to get the family back together. And so in this particular season, she wants the family to sing in one of the church competitions to go against one of the families that she doesn't particularly like. So she needs like all four of them to be part of the choir. But of course, if Jung is there, Mr. Kim is kind of like, I'm not going, you know? So that's what happens. In the end, that's what we see. But later on, when they're singing, obviously Appa has like a more deeper voice and they needed to be part of the choir. And while they're singing, and you see that in the competition it's not going as well with just three of their voices, but then all of a sudden there's like a lower pitch voice, and Appa, like, we know Appa's there and they know Appa's there, and it was like that moment I was like, oh my god, yes, this is so strong, and like this was so nice. I absolutely loved it. I loved it, and I was like, oh my god, that's it. But then I only had to wait like a couple of weeks for season 2 to come out, and I obviously instantly watched it because why not? So season 2 episode 3 was called House Guest. This kind of comes back to the pastor, the new pastor Nina. Her apartment is getting renovated, so she kind of needs a place to stay, and Mr. Kim says that not Mr. Kim, like Mr. and Mrs. Kim is like, okay, so Janet moved out, we were okay if you come over and stay with us for a couple of days. And she's like, yeah, sure, if you guys don't mind. And on the other hand, Jung kind of worries that he's not as smart. He worries about this because Janet kind of invites him over to one of their kind of like hangouts, and Jung can see that all of Janet's friends like can answer the questions, but Jung can't, so he feels kind of not smart. The first premise of the so in the episode, Mrs. Kim finds condoms in the room, and they're like, okay, is it Janet's or is it Pastor Nina's? Because if it's Janet's, oh my god, and if it's Pastor Nina's, oh my god. So this whole thing ensues, and it's very funny. I like it. But next is episode 7 that I want to talk about. It's called Sneak Attack. So the premise is that Appa wants in on Uma's side business, while Janet assumes a new identity accidentally on purpose when she tries to get into a film festival after party. When Uma offers the store's old freezer to Jung and Kimchi, Jung is reluctant to accept it, while Kimchi and Janet fight over who will get the freezer for their respective apartment. I know there's like so much to this episode, and you should really watch it. The side business, Uma, she sells this Korean cream that is kind of illegal in Canada to sell, but she like sells it on the side, so there are like some specific customers that come to her and ask for it, and she sells to only them. And she gets the cream from like whoever goes to Korea, but like it's kind of like on a low end. But the thing is, when Mr. Kim finds out how much the cream sells for, Mr. Kim orders like a bunch of them from a choir that is coming over for their church program. What happens is, obviously, like after a while, Uma is like, oh my god, Appa, why would you do that? Like, it's illegal. The cream is illegal here. I'm like selling it on the side for a reason. And then Appa's like, oh my god, what will we do? The choir team already started their journey. It's not like we can stop them or anything. And then the funniest bit is when Mr. and Mrs. Kim kind of go to the restaurant the choir wants to meet them with, and they're like trying to be very slick and go like, okay, we cannot gain attention. And they're like police officers there, so they start freaking out more, and they're like, okay, this is it. This is when it happens. This is where our life ends. Freaking out, but they're trying not to freak out and freaking out more about it. Later on, the funniest bit was they just, like the choir people, they just give them the suitcase, and they're like, "Can you be more on the low?" And they're like, "Why? What's wrong?" And then they're like, "Oh my god, there are police officers behind you. What is wrong with you?" But anyways, so later on they get the cream, and I don't think they bring the cream up later on. But yeah, it was a very funny episode. And then there was also episode 12 of season 2, which is Appa's first text. So the premise is that Appa inherits Janet's smartphone. Amma discovers a pest in the store. Kimchi tries to help Janet with her FOMO. And Jung tries to reconnect with the girl. Now, I'm kind of giving you a spoiler, but you should have known about this when you started listening to the podcast. So basically, you know how I said that Appa gets Janet's new smartphone? What happens is that Jung kind of gets a text. Like, Jung thinks that he's texting with a girl, but he's actually texting Appa because it's an unknown number. So it's Appa's number, but Jung doesn't have Appa's number. So Jung just assumes it's a random girl. So they're texting each other, but they don't know they're texting each other. And then later on, they decide to meet somewhere, and then they kind of have a drink. It was kind of like a sweet way to rekindle. I really liked it. And then there was episode 13, Handy Graduation. This was also a season finale. And can I tell you, Kim's Convenience always knows how to hold a season finale. I absolutely love it. So over here, the premise is that Uma wants the family to celebrate Jung getting his GED. Shannon organizes a party to celebrate Jung's achievement, but is conflicted when their feelings for each other surface. Janet gets tired of being the good one and feels underappreciated when Amma and Appa celebrate Jung's achievement while ignoring hers. And then Jung struggles to tell Shannon that he's taking a job elsewhere. This episode had so much happen to it. You're just like, whoa. Poof. You know, there's this one premise where Janet's like, come on, like Jung could do the smallest thing and you would be like, oh yes, my firstborn did this and all that. I relate to that. Mom and Dad, I know you're listening to this. Listen well. This is not fair. I feel underappreciated just like Janet. So like, show me more love. I know for a fact my mom's gonna call me and be like, excuse you? You get more love than your sister. And that's kind of true most of the times, but I still like to play the I'm underappreciated card because it always works. What? Did I just say a secret that younger siblings always use? No? What do you mean? So yeah, that happens, and Janet tries to like ride a bike, and she finds out that Mrs. Kim is hella strong. And then there's the Handy Graduation. Like I said, Jung gets a lot of development in his character. So he finally gets his GED, and obviously Amma wants to like celebrate that. Appa is like, okay, I'm gonna meet my son and all that. And like I said, Shannon has a thing for him, but Shannon kinda starts dating someone else. During the Handy Graduation, they kinda have a situation and they're like, oh my god, what are we gonna do? But Jung is leaving their workplace, and he just doesn't know how to tell Shannon. So it's a whole thing. I really like it. You see at a point that Appa and Jung kind of have a little fight, but Amma's like, why do you always have to do this? We want just one family picture. Oh yeah, there's this whole thing about them trying to get a family picture. In the end they get one, but it's kind of not the way Amma expected it to be. But it was very interesting. Like, hats off to Amma. She's such a nice character, and you can clearly see she's the glue to the family, and I love it. I absolutely love it. Oh my god, guys, I've talked about this for so long, I didn't even realize. We're actually almost out of time. I'm going to end with one last song. It's called Lighthouse by Fabian, Mazur, and Greyson Chance. I hope you guys enjoy. Do tune in next week, same time. That is Saturday, 10 a.m. I'll be waiting for you with more spoilers, recommendations, and my take on different series. If you wish to recommend me something, send me theories about TV shows and web series, or even to just show some love, then you can follow or message me. All my social media handle is Adriana Bilur. Thank you for listening. Take care, stay safe. What? Take care, stay safe, and keep on binge watching responsibly. Until next time, bye!